What hidden tragedies lie beneath the glittering facades of old Hollywood's greatest icons? In their autopsy reports and death certificates, we uncover heartbreaking details, failed organs, shattered bodies, and silent cries for help. Join us on an emotional, documentary-style journey through 20 legendary stars whose final official records reveal the quiet despair behind their fame. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts as we honor their legacies and confront the sad truths that linger long after the final curtain falls. 1. Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino's magnetic screen presence could stop hearts, but it was a literal rupture that ended his life at just 31. On August 15, 1926, Valentino was rushed to hospital with excruciating abdominal pain. Doctors discovered a perforated gastric ulcer that had spilled corrosive digestive fluids into his abdomen, triggering deadly peritonitis. His autopsy report starkly described extensive peritoneal inflammation and multiple small tears along the lesser curvature of the stomach. For a man who embodied strength and virility on screen, the internal weakness betrayed him. In his final days, Valentino endured relentless agony, subdued by morphine while mourning a career at its zenith. Fans gathered outside the hospital, unaware of his private hell. The autopsy also noted severe malnutrition, a sign that his body had been starving amid unrelenting work and tour schedules. While newspapers lauded his on-screen conquests, the death certificate's cold medical language reveals a different story. Relentless pain, medical desperation, and a body pushed far beyond its limits in the service of stardom. 2. Carole Lombard. Carole Lombard charmed audiences with her comedic brilliance, but her death certificate paints a grim picture of sudden catastrophic trauma. On January 16, 1942, Lombard perished in a plane crash returning from a war bond tour. The official report lists multiple fractures of the skull, pelvis, and long bones, alongside extensive thoracic hemorrhaging and crushing of vital organs. Her autopsy described lacerations to the liver and spleen so severe that survival was impossible. For a woman whose smile lit up the silver screen, the death certificate's stark enumeration of broken bones underscored a more painful reality. Fame came with a grueling wartime schedule that left little margin for rest. Friends later recalled that Lombard had insisted on the final flight despite a fierce snowstorm, her patriotism overruling concern for her safety. The brutal injuries listed in her death certificate stand in stark contrast to her vivacious public persona, revealing the ultimate sacrifice beneath her comedic legacy, a life broken apart, quite literally, in service of her country. 3. Jean Harlo. Jean Harlo dazzled 1930s Hollywood with platinum charisma, yet her autopsy exposed a body ravaged by silent disease. On June 7, 1937, at just 26, she collapsed at home and was pronounced dead hours later. The autopsy report cited acute renal failure caused by cerebral meningitis, with microscopic examination revealing widespread kidney degeneration and fluid buildup in the brain. Though public obituaries cited viral meningitis, the coroner's notes hint at underlying vulnerabilities. Harlo's kidneys showed chronic scarring, possibly linked to long-term use of stimulants to endure punishing studio filming schedules. In an era when stars were pressed to work through illness, her death certificate's clinical terms, renal nephritis and subarachnoid hemorrhage, paint a more harrowing image. Behind her sultry allure lay a woman who pushed her body to studio-forged extremes, masking crippling headaches and exhaustion. The post-mortem findings shatter the myth of Hollywood invincibility, showing that beneath the sheen lay organs crying out for rest, pleas that went unheeded until they became irreversible. 4. Clara Bow. The it girl of the silent era, Clara Bow's vivacity masked a heart succumbing to pressure. On September 27, 1965, she died of a massive cerebral thrombosis and hemorrhage, terms plainly recorded on her death certificate. Autopsy findings detailed a blood clot the size of a peach pit lodged in her middle cerebral artery, causing irreversible brain damage. Yet the coroner also noted advanced arteriosclerosis in her coronary arteries, suggesting years of unmanaged high blood pressure. Bose's decline was slow and private. After a nervous breakdown in the early 1930s, she retreated from the screen, living off-screen anxiety that stoked undiagnosed hypertension. The death certificate's notation, hypertensive vascular disease contributing to cerebral infarction, speaks volumes of a starlet whose internal turmoil went ignored until it claimed her life. In her heyday, she sparked joy and laughter, but the autopsy report lays bare a different reality. Silent blood clots brewing beneath a brittle exterior, reminding us that emotional strain can warp even the brightest spirits until they shatter. 5. Wallace Reed. Once the epitome of matinee charm, Wallace Reed's death certificate tells of a far darker transformation. Injured in a 1919 train wreck, Reed became dependent on morphine prescribed for pain management. By January 18, 1923, his body was failing from overdose complications and tuberculosis, noted on the certificate as chronic morphinism and pulmonary tuberculosis. The autopsy elaborated on fibrotic lung tissue and a liver showing toxic drug-induced degeneration. Known on set as the screen's most perfect lover, Reed's final pages reveal a man ensnared by medical addiction, unable to break free from the very cures meant to heal him. Studio records show he begged for more morphine and began missing shoots, his glamour replaced by tremors and delirium. The stark phrasing "exhaustion due to narcotic poisoning" underscores a tragic irony, a star whose on-screen allure concealed a body slowly corroded by dependency. Reed's autopsy unmasked the silent cost of early Hollywood's cavalier medical practices, turning one of its brightest young talents into a cautionary tale of compassion gone wrong. 6. James Dean. In the early hours of September 30, 1955, James Dean's Porsche 550 Spider collided with a Ford Tudor, ending the life of Hollywood's brooding rebel at just 24. His autopsy report detailed multiple skull fractures, a ruptured spleen, and lacerations throughout the torso. Dean's death certificate bluntly recorded massive cranial and thoracic trauma as the cause of death. For fans who idolized his raw emotion and restless spirit, the cold medical terminology reveals a violent end that starkly contrasts the young actor's romantic image. He'd been determined to race despite mechanical concerns, embodying the very recklessness that made him an icon. Witnesses later recounted that Dean, ever proud of his Sportster, declined advice to slow down, a choice immortalized in his fatal injuries. Behind the mythic legend of youthful rebellion lies a body that bore witness to high-speed tragedy. Dean's autopsy reminds us that the vulnerability behind his defiant gaze was all too human, a life cut short by the price of living on the edge. 7. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe's radiant smile hid a deep struggle with mental health and addiction. On August 5, 1962, she was found dead in her Los Angeles home. Her death certificate lists acute barbiturate poisoning as the cause. The autopsy report revealed a blood concentration of chloral hydrate and pentobarbital, so high it overwhelms the body's ability to maintain vital functions. Traces of alcohol, which can amplify sedatives, were also present. Monroe's liver showed signs of chronic strain, suggesting long-term medication use to manage insomnia and depression. The signature line, "drug-induced respiratory failure," on her certificate contrasts sharply with her public image of glamour and ease. Studio records indicate she had stockpiled pills, a desperate bid for relief from relentless pressure. In her final hours, scribbled notes and unanswered phone calls painted a portrait of profound isolation. The stark medical findings peel back Hollywood's glossy veneer to expose a star who, despite all her success, could not escape the darkness within. 8. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's legendary voice and boundless emotion belied a fragile body worn down by decades of physical and psychological stress. On June 22, 1969, she succumbed to an accidental overdose of barbiturates. Her autopsy described cardiac arrhythmia precipitated by acute ingestion of amobarbital, alongside evidence of chronic kidney congestion and fatty liver changes. The death certificate cites insufficient respiratory drive secondary to sedative overdose. Garland's struggles began as a teen under MGM's punishing diet and stimulant regimens. Her body bore the scars of studio-forced weight control and long production hours. In the autopsy room, pathologists noted enlarged adrenal glands, signaling years of unrelenting stress. Her final medical records capture the tragic irony. A woman whose songs proclaimed hope and resilience ultimately overwhelmed herself in search of peace. The cold medical language belies the warmth she brought to millions, revealing a star whose heart and organs bore the weight of Hollywood's ruthless demands. 9. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's sparkling performances masked a private battle with anxiety and strained relationships. On the night of November 28, 1981, she slipped from a yacht into the dark waters off Catalina Island. The coroner's report lists drowning as the immediate cause, complicated by blunt impact injuries to her head and torso. Her autopsy revealed a deep laceration on her forehead and bruising consistent with striking the yacht's railing before entering the water. The death certificate notes either accidental drowning or that Wood was completely submerged before loss of consciousness. Speculation around alcohol in her bloodstream suggests she was off balance when she fell, possibly during an argument with her husband, Robert Wagner. The precise wording on the certificate, undetermined circumstances contributing to drowning, echoes the lingering questions around her final hours. Wood's tragic end underscores the precarious line between stardom's allure and its hidden emotional toll, immortalizing a life that slipped away under a veneer of luxury and fame. 10. Montgomery Clift. Beloved for his intense introspective performances, Montgomery Clift's private life was shadowed by tragedy. In 1956, a near-fatal car crash shattered his face and ribs, leading to chronic pain and morphine use. Clift's death certificate from July 23, 1966, lists acute myocardial infarction and coronary atherosclerosis as causes. The autopsy described a heart enlarged by years of medication-induced stress and poor diet, alongside hepatic steatosis, indicating fatty liver changes linked to painkiller abuse. Co-stars recalled Clift's haunting vulnerability, his physical scars a testament to the crash's lingering damage. His final medical records reflect a man whose body, long under siege from narcotics and emotional turmoil, finally gave way. The stark clinical terms, ischemic heart disease and organ congestion, reveal the hidden cost of Hollywood's physical expectations and the toll of treating pain with powerful drugs. Clift's tragic demise reminds us that even the most soulful talents can be undone by silent battles waged within the body. 11. Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate's luminous future was snuffed out by one of Hollywood's darkest nights. When detectives arrived at her Benedict Canyon home on August 9, 1969, they faced a horrifying scene. Tate, 8.5 months pregnant, lay bound and stabbed. The autopsy cataloged 16 penetrating wounds to chest, back, and abdomen, noting that 5 were fatal on their own. Massive internal bleeding, hemoperitoneum exceeding 2 liters, was the official cause of death. Tate had fought fiercely. Defensive cuts on her arms and palms revealed desperate attempts to shield her unborn son. Her death certificate lists multiple stab wounds inflicted by another person, a chilling reminder that homicide can rip life away in seconds. Hollywood mourned a rising star whose gentle nature contrasted the brutal medical language describing torn lungs and severed liver tissue. Friends recalled she nearly skipped the gathering that night, but chose to be a gracious hostess. That simple decision sealed a tragic fate, exposing the fragility behind fame's bright surface. Tate's autopsy remains a heartbreaking chronicle of promise interrupted, reinforcing how violence can forever alter the narrative of Hollywood glamour. 12th. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, forever Dracula in the public mind, spent his final years battling morphine addiction and declining health. On August 16, 1956, he collapsed in his Los Angeles apartment. The coroner found myocardial infarction caused by advanced coronary sclerosis, but the autopsy revealed more. Arteries hardened like calcified tubes, lungs dotted with emphysematous pockets, and liver tissue showing early cirrhosis. Traces of morphine sulfates lingered in his blood, subtherapeutic yet telling of past reliance to ease chronic sciatic pain. His death certificate lists coronary occlusion with hypertension as contributing, exposing a heart literally starved of oxygen. Friends recalled Lugosi's tireless tours and cheap horror revivals, sometimes fainting backstage yet insisting, "The show must go on." These relentless road trips left him penniless and physically depleted. The autopsy's cold anatomy, clogged arteries, damaged lungs, contrasts with the mesmerizing vigor he projected on screen. In Death, Lugosi's report underscores a cruel twist. The man who embodied an immortal vampire suffered a painfully mortal decay, his exhausted heart giving out long before audiences were ready to let him go. 13. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge broke barriers as the first black actress nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, yet her final paperwork tells of dreams crushed under systemic strain. On September 8, 1965, she was discovered lifeless in her Hollywood apartment. The autopsy cited acute drug intoxication by the antidepressant imipramine, noting blood levels 5 times therapeutic range. Pathologists also uncovered a cerebral embolism, a blood clot lodged in the right middle cerebral artery, which likely caused sudden collapse. Her death certificate lists probable accidental overdose with embolism complicating pre-existing circulatory insufficiency. Friends said Dandridge juggled mounting debt, racial discrimination, and custody battles, finding short-lived solace in prescription pills. Bruises on her shins hinted at a recent fall, possibly from vertigo tied to poor circulation. The stark medical terminology, pulmonary congestion, hepatic lipid infiltration, speaks to a body worn by anxiety, crash diets, and nightclub schedules. Dandridge's autopsy reveals a tragic paradox. A woman hailed for poise and grace was, in private, overwhelmed by pain few acknowledged. Her final records expose Hollywood's indifference to the burdens borne by its pioneers. 14. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn spent 2 decades leaping from ship riggings and dueling foes, but by his final night, the swashbuckler's body was a battlefield. On October 14, 1959, he died in Vancouver while negotiating a yacht sale. The autopsy labeled his heart enlarged, dilated, and riddled with fatty deposits, citing myocardial infarction atop severe coronary atherosclerosis. The coroner famously remarked Flynn had the body of a 75-year-old despite being 50. Cirrhosis scarred his liver, a legacy of hard drinking, while pulmonary edema flooded his lungs. The death certificate identifies coronary thrombosis with cirrhotic liver disease contributing. Years of excess, champagne breakfasts, chain smoking, and marathon shoots left calcium nodules in his kidneys and degenerative discs in his spine. Colleagues recalled Flynn brushing off chest pain minutes before collapsing, joking, "I feel as fit as ever." The autopsy's stark measurements, arteries blocked up to 90%, liver twice normal weight, unmasked the toll behind his devil-may-care grin. Flynn's final medical story shows that the bravado-fueling cinema's greatest adventures masked a body crumbling under relentless indulgence. 15th. George Reeves' television's first Superman met an end as tragic as it was controversial. In the early hours of June 16, 1959, police found George Reeves dead in his bedroom with a gunshot wound to the head. His autopsy detailed contact entrance wound at right temple and a blood alcohol level of 0.27%, enough to impair judgment. Powder burns on skin suggested the muzzle pressed directly to his head, supporting the official suicide ruling. Yet the death certificate also notes fractured nose and multiple bruises acquired within hours of death, fueling speculation of foul play amid turbulent relationships and career frustrations. Reeves had complained of chronic insomnia and typecasting despair, turning to heavy drinking. Autopsy photographs captured gunshot residue on hands, evidence cited to close the case. But skeptics see unresolved fingerprints on the pistol and conflicting witness timelines. The sterile language, cerebral destruction by ballistic trauma, cannot convey the anguish of a man adored by children, yet unable to shed a comic book cape. Reeves's final documents expose the fragile line between heroic fiction and human despair, reminding us that even those playing invincible icons may carry unbearable weight off-screen. 16. John Barrymore. Dubbed the Great Profile, John Barrymore ruled both stage and screen, yet his autopsy reads like a ledger of excess. On May 29, 1942, he collapsed during a rehearsal and never regained consciousness. The death certificate lists cirrhosis of the liver and bronchopneumonia as primary causes, but the coroner's notes reveal deeper decay. A liver hardened to twice normal density, patchworked with nodules, and lungs heavy with fluid from years of chain smoking. Blood tests showed a shocking alcohol content even after days in a coma, indicating chronic consumption that kept his tissues saturated. Physicians discovered esophageal varices, bulging veins ready to rupture, evidence of portal hypertension, while his heart was unnaturally enlarged, laboring against systemic damage. Friends recalled Barrymore's nightly ritual of bourbon by the quart, masking loneliness behind Shakespearean bravado. The stark medical language, hepatic failure, respiratory compromise, contrasts the romantic image of a matinee idol reciting Hamlet under moonlit backdrops. His autopsy underscores a tragic end. The same passion that electrified audiences also fueled habits that ravaged his organs, proving that artistic fire, unchecked, can burn the vessel that carries it. 17. Thelma Todd. Comedy star Thelma Todd lit up Hal Roach two-reelers, but her death certificate is steeped in chilling ambiguity. On December 16, 1935, she was found slumped in her garage car seat, engine off, lips blue. The coroner ruled accidental carbon monoxide poisoning with acute alcohol intoxication contributing, yet the autopsy revealed bruises on her face and ribs and a blood alcohol level of 0.13%. Investigators noted smudged makeup and undigested peas in her stomach, suggesting a late-night meal before a struggle. Carbon monoxide saturation measured 75%, enough to render her unconscious within minutes, but detectives puzzled over why her elegant evening gown remained pristine if she'd simply fallen asleep. Rumors swirled of mob entanglements and a feud with restaurant partner Roland West. The autopsy's sterile lines, cherry red lividity, pulmonary edema, hide a Hollywood whodunit still unsettled. Todd's bright on-screen laughter belied a woman navigating dangerous alliances, and her final medical record stands as grim testimony. Behind every silver screen smile may lurk shadows thick enough to suffocate. 18. Jane Mansfield. Jane Mansfield's life ended in a split second of brutal physics. In the early hours of June 29, 1967, her Buick slammed into a tractor trailer outside New Orleans. The autopsy cataloged crushed skull fractures, complete transection of the occipital scalp, and near-total decapitation. Injuries so graphic early reports were sealed from the public. Her death certificate lists avulsion of cranium and brain as cause, compounded by multiple thoracic and abdominal lacerations. Yet, the coroner also recorded traces of strong sedatives in her bloodstream, suggesting she may have dozed off seconds before collision, a tragic irony for a star famed for boundless energy. Mansfield had performed 2 shows that night, hauling family and pets on an overnight drive to meet a TV commitment by dawn. Roadway fog trucks were yet to be mandated with underride guards. Her impact helped change U.S. trucking safety laws. The stark medical jargon, instantaneous, unsurvivable trauma, contrasts the image of a vivacious bombshell whose marketing stunts masked relentless fatigue. Her autopsy stands as both grim finale and catalyst for reform, proving that behind Hollywood spectacle often lies a relentless schedule that can turn a highway into a death trap. 19. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's lightning speed astonished the world, making the official finding on his death certificate, cerebral edema due to hypersensitivity to Equagesic, all the more shocking. On July 20, 1973, he complained of a headache, swallowed a common pain tablet containing meprobamate and aspirin, and lay down. He never woke. The autopsy revealed his brain had swollen nearly 13%, compressing vital centers. No drugs of abuse were detected, only therapeutic levels of Equagesic. Yet pathologists noted prior episodes of cerebral edema linked to heat exhaustion during frantic film shoots. Lee's kidneys showed mild dehydration, and adrenal glands were enlarged, markers of chronic stress. He'd been shedding water weight to look lean for Enter the Dragon, perhaps exacerbating vulnerability. The sterile phrase hypersensitivity reaction cannot convey the shock felt worldwide, a paragon of physical perfection felled by an ordinary pill. Conspiracy theories exploded, but tissue histology supported an allergic cascade, tiny blood vessels engorged, leaky, drowning neurons. Lee's autopsy reminds us that even bodies honed to near superhuman levels can harbor hidden fragilities, and that the fiercest warriors may fall not to enemies, but to invisible misfires within. 20. Elvis Presley. Though crowned the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley's film career made him a Hollywood mainstay, and his autopsy charts, a dethroning by pharmacology and neglect, found unresponsive on his Graceland bathroom floor on August 16, 1977, he was pronounced dead at 42. The death certificate cited cardiac arrhythmia, but the post-mortem toxicology revealed a pharmacy's worth of drugs: codeine, morphine, Valium, Demerol, and more. Pathologists also documented a colon distended to twice normal width, evidence of chronic constipation linked to opiate use, and a liver marbled by fatty degeneration. His heart weighed 25% more than average, strained by obesity and hypertension. Autopsy photographs showed pulmonary edema, while arteries displayed early atherosclerosis. Friends recalled Elvis popping pills to juggle concert schedules and crippling insomnia, often supplied by an accommodating doctor. The autopsy's blunt conclusions, polypharmacy overdose, cardiac compromise, strip away myth to reveal a man cornered by fame, insomnia, and untreated pain. Presley's final medical record stands as a cautionary area. Even a king can be undone when the quest for relief spirals into toxic excess. From ruptured ulcers to silent allergic storms, Hollywood's gilded coffins to reveal fragile hearts, exhausted organs, and lives distorted by fame's fierce glare. If these legends taught us anything, it's that behind every spotlight stands a beating heart that can break. Honor their memories by seeking balance, cherishing health, and remembering that even stars need room to breathe. Like, subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover more hidden chapters of cinema history.